everyone. My name is Jeremy, creator and co-host of the Star Trek Wars podcast. Welcome to Star Trek Wars, your official bootleg Strange New Worlds podcast. Joining me tonight, he chooses this podcast freely, and we honor his sacrifice. It's Jordan. Hello, Jordan.
Yes, thank you. We got a little nervous when you're hauling off Connor's charred body, but someone's got to power this podcast. So science, service, sacrifice.
Hell yeah, brother, to 3 S's, or as we say in this household. That's why our family crest has a cobra on it. And to my left, well, I saved her from a shuttle accident a decade ago, and all I got was this. I got front row seats to a child murder t-shirt. It's my co-host and co-life partner, Chelsea. Hi, Chelsea.
Hey, guys.
The episode we're reviewing tonight will be rated on a scale from 1 to 10 by us, the co-hosts, and you guys in the Star Trek Wars Council that left a rating on our Facebook page. If you wish to join the council and have your vote counted for next week's episode, head over to that page. You can find us by searching for Star Trek Wars. The council should pop up right at the top. There you can rate episodes yourself and can also leave a comment that'll be potentially read on air. It's a great community. We're all on there, very active, and love talking Trek with you. Now, it turns out last week in our body swap episode, none of us had any corrections that needed to be corrected, so that's a plus and surprising. If you find a correction for today's episode, we'd love to hear from you. Let us know by writing us on Facebook, or you can email us at StarTrekWarsPod@gmail.com. And if you'd like to leave a voice message instead, call us at speakpipe.com/Star Trek Wars, and we may play your message on next week's episode. Now, guys, I think it's time.
So let's get down to the business.
Yes, as Haggis says, it's time to get down to the business and talk about this week's episode. Star Trek Strange New Worlds, Season 1, Episode 6, Lift Us Where Suffering Cannot Reach. Written by Robin Wasserman and Bill Wolkoff. Directed by Andy Armaganian. A threat to an idyllic planet reunites Captain Pike with the lost love of his life. To protect her and a scientific holy child from a conspiracy, Pike offers his help and is forced to face unresolved feelings of the past. All right, guys, let's just go around and get brief initial reactions, whether you love this episode and want to hit it.
Hit it.
Or if you dislike this episode and want to quit it.
I quit. To hell with you.
Chelsea, why don't you lead us off? Hit it or quit it this week.
I am going to hit it like I wish Pike would have hit that child-murdering woman.
Oh, my goodness. Okay. Strong feelings from Chelsea. Very good. Jordan.
I'd also say Pike hit it this week, but I'd hit it and then immediately regret it, kind of like how Pike regretted ever being intimate with a woman who's okay with sacrificing a child's life to power her palace's electricity.
Okay. I feel like we're all kind of on the same wavelength this week, as I would also hit it. I'd hit it like the entire civilization of the Magellans would hypothetically hit the ground if they stopped murdering kids for hover power.
Hover power.
All right, Chelsea, why don't we jump into the pros with you? What worked this week?
All right. So my notes are kind of a mess, so bear with me here. We watched this episode twice, which in the past, when I rewatch something, I usually, for some reason, like, I don't know, hate it.
I think that's why we stopped watching them twice.
Yeah. I don't understand that. But so the second watch for me was important, though. I mean, first and foremost, Lon is starting to grow on me.
Yes.
So I feel like last week's episode really did a lot for her character and kind of the way I perceive her. So that was nice. And I feel like, yeah, she's kind of like rough around the edges to Uhura, but I think that's just because she expects really great things from her because she can sense that potential. So,
and once the Strange New Worlds writers just planted those seeds and watered Lon, she definitely started to grow this summer, I think.
You gotta water the lawn.
Yeah.
Y'all.
Watch her grow.
And your dad jokes. It's like a chia pet. A little Bob Ross chia pet. Name it Lon. Anyway, no, I really like her. I really like seeing Uhura on the different rotations, so the different crew members. I feel like she's gotten a lot of screen time, and we don't just have to have like an Uhura episode, which is nice. Plus, I like seeing her interact like a little bit differently with each person, kind of depending. I feel like it's really opening up like her character. So that's pretty cool. Okay, so the scene where Mbenga and the first servant's dad, whose name is escaping me right now, unlike the kid escaped, when he's whispering, I was like getting like hardcore Yoda vibes from his voice, like Mbenga's voice. When he's whispering, like he was trying to like talk quietly.
Did not pick that up. That's very interesting.
It was really funny. I thought I noticed it the first time, and then the second time I was like, yeah, no, that's definitely a thing
I noticed
that
it when he laughed and he was like,
yeah, he's kind of Yoda, but then he like talks normal, and I'm like, oh, was I imagining that?
Possibly.
But yeah, like the whisper, it was
Definitely that scene where he said, "Away with your weapons. I mean you no harm." Definitely harken back to some Yoda.
Oh my god!
When he started hitting the first servant with a stick, I really
Yeah, that was...
Tried to ride around on his back like a backpack. All right, let's see here. Okay, so something I picked up on the second time. So the kid has those neural implants, and at first I was like, "Oh, that's bizarre." But first watch through, I didn't pick up that the first servant is chosen by lottery.
Oh yeah.
I thought it was just like, oh, he's like a very gifted, intelligent kid, and like so that's why they're gonna sacrifice him to, I don't know, the energy gods or whatever. But it's kind of dark because those implants are like really cool and everybody's like, oh, that's so neat. Like we want that technology. And then you find out that they're literally there to keep him alive for longer while he's suffering and like powering the entire civilization. So that was kind of dark. And I don't really know what of these are pros or cons. Like I said, my notes are a mess. So.
Suffering.
Suffer you will. Let's see here. Pike this week, obviously acting like a schoolboy, was hilarious. Very like Shatner from the original series to me. I think he mentioned like that like kind of mischievous boy smirk.
Yeah.
Cracks me up. I don't know. I really enjoyed when he forgot Una's name. Like, who is this woman? Like, oh my God. I didn't think that they had like slept together prior to this, but I think maybe they have after what Jordan said. I'm not sure. But no, I love him just being like a nervous schoolboy. Let's see. Sorry, guys.
Okay, good.
I feel like it had a lot of like potential foreshadowing / like teaser moments. So there's a couple times that she mentions like, we're not part of the Federation. Mm-hmm. And then you see them like sacrificing kids so they can like run their washing machine. And it's like, well, you're never going to be part of the Federation at this point.
Yeah.
And I thought that was interesting because when he tells her about like his accident in 10 years, she's like, well, we could fix you. And there's like a brief moment where it's like, oh no, like maybe there is a chance. But then you immediately realize that they won't share their technology unless they're part of the Federation. And now they're not going to join. But then at the end, when the dad kind of gives like the data to Mbenga, it kind of like brings that up again. Like maybe the Federation could do something with this data and kind of figure it out. But I don't know how that would affect like canon, right? Because he's definitely like a melty crayon in a chair.
As far as he knows.
Series. So I don't know if that was just me like overthinking it, but I thought that was kind of interesting. I also enjoyed the fact that it's sad, but it's refreshing that the kid wasn't saved. Because in the original series, it would have been a happy ending. Everything would have been fine. Like, I feel like the crew is going to utilize this down the road for better or worse. Like, this is something that's going to stick with them. And maybe Pike will ask a few more questions next time he wants to get his wiki whacked. Be like, do you murder kids? No? Okay. Well, let me show you to the captain's quarters. I don't know. Teachable moment for Mr. Pike, for sure. Okay. My last, I guess, pro or note is her argument about, like, well, can you tell me that there's no kids suffering under the Federation? She, like, completely missed the point. Like, yeah, there's probably poverty and suffering and all of that in the Federation, but they're not going out of their way to plug kids into machines and, like, actively murdering them and sacrificing them. Like, it feels like in this civilization, they just kind of raise these kids almost like cattle.
Yeah, just because neither's perfect doesn't mean one's way better than the other.
Yeah, no, we have suffering, but it's not because we're plugging them in. And then in 6 years? I mean, that corpse was still a child. So
Yeah.
how long before the next one?
Yeah. How often is this lottery?
Yeah. Is it like every 5-6 years? Like, it's just, I don't know. This episode I thought was really good. It was dark, but I feel like they handled it really well. And I like that for most of it, you feel like something's off with them, but you can't really put your finger on it. But I don't know. That was kind of my pros, I guess.
Awesome. Thank you, Chelsea. Jordan, what worked for you?
Well, imagine getting that letter in the mail. You won the lottery. Congratulations. Yes. Wait, which one?
You have 4 years to live.
Yeah, am I getting $1 million or am I dying? And I also want to give some, while we're here, some advice on growing your lawn in space. You got to use space seed so it'll grow properly.
Of course.
So, pro-wise, we get a Sam Kirk sighting, and he was actually conscious and spoke a sentence or two. So we've been asking for it. It wasn't much, but they did give us something. And I think I've been looking forward to kind of the first away mission to an inhabited alien world for a while. And this one didn't really disappoint in the sense of the visuals. I thought like everything from the architecture, the scenery, and kind of that shot where the guy is running, who at the time we thought was the bad guy, who I guess is really a good guy, which is why she stabbed him. And you see like the lava planet below them. That was pretty cool. I thought that was a really well done shot. The costuming was pretty good. Everything looked great. It was kind of like this fantastical, it looked futuristic, but also somewhat like Victorian era in some ways, with some of the decor in the rooms. And it just had an interesting look to it. Definitely higher quality than you'd see like an original series episode or TNG episode when you go down to a planet. So I got slight Cloudminders vibes from this one, except there weren't people suffering down on the surface. It was just all harnessed into one small child. So, yeah, I don't know which is worse. We haven't had many guest stars this season either. It's been a lot of the crew, which is, I think, good for the starting of the first season, so you can kind of get to know them. But really, T'Pring has been one of the only guest stars. And it wouldn't be a Star Trek guest star that shows up randomly in this vast endlessness of space without it being an old flame of a crew member, because that's just the most Star Trek thing ever. It's like you run into someone and the guest star happens to be, I met them 10 years ago in space randomly in a shuttle accident, and here we are, another shuttle accident. I mean, unless it's Chakotay, the odds of that seem pretty rare, but it was really funny. Chelsea touched on this as well, just to see Pike caught off guard and just like stuttering and just couldn't even remember his first officer's name and rank. And I think that happens to most everybody, but it's just cool to see like a Brad Pitt looking dude be normal like the rest of us. And it's not your typical predictable ending. So this one, Chelsea mentioned that too. In the original series, you would not see a child tortured by this device for years until it was burnt to a crisp. So it was kind of bold to do that, and it's kind of refreshing at times when they subvert expectation, but in a way that kind of shocks you. And that was most of the pros. I'm a little neutral zone on this one. I liked it. I did not watch it twice, not all of it. I was rewatching it before we recorded, and I got halfway through because I was a little murky on some of the details. I felt the script was a little convoluted at times and a little convenient and contrived in some ways. This is by no means a bad episode, but I think it's my least favorite so far, pretty close to it. It doesn't really have that much to say in the grand scheme of things. I mean, unless your point is don't murder children, I'm not sure what it's alluding to. But it was an interesting kind of road to get there, slightly predictable in some ways, because it's like there's a lot of conversations that just didn't go anywhere, especially like the deep stuff where it's like, oh yeah, I think Pike says, I'm going to die in a few years. She's like, oh really? She's just like, okay, takes him at his word. He's like, so what's going to happen to the kid? Oh, just wait and see. Just wait and see. Like they kept putting that off. So you knew the other shoe was going to drop. And there's definitely discussion that can be had regarding the moral questions of this episode, but I can't really entertain it for very long, seeing on where it goes. Child sacrifice is not something I can really get behind, and I don't think that this kid is mentally capable of making a decision of life or death. I would assume he's 7 or 8 years old. Mm-hmm. So even if he does choose this freely, quote unquote, I can't go along with that either, because I don't think you can plug a kid into a machine for his whole life at the age of 7, even if he does it willingly. Like, that's a major cop out by the society. It's like, yeah, kids suffer, but we know they're suffering, and so do they. And we watch it, and they're like, we celebrate. I'm like, what the heck? Okay, Mother Teresa. No Hemmer again. That's neutral zone, because I guess he didn't need to be in this episode. But it'd be nice to see him. I think he's only really been in 2 episodes so far in a meaningful way. Pike's hair, much like Spock's sideburns, it's getting borderline ridiculous at this point. This needs to be toned down by like 25 to 30%. I'm just assuming that he gets a haircut after filming this episode. But man, if next week it's even longer, like, we're approaching Conehead territory here with his look. And then lastly, La'an's security rules. I really hate to say this, but given her grumpy demeanor, her short stature, and her accent, she's reminding me more and more of a descendant of Malcolm Reed than Khan at this point. It kind of reminded me a little bit of Loeffler's Laws, which the character Robin Loeffler, and you see a lot more of that in Peter David's New Frontier novels. And those are kind of interesting, and those are more science-based, and she's not a douche to everybody. So they're more enjoyable. But I don't know, that whole plot, it's really just done kind of build up Uhura, which is good. But La'an just comes off looking like a jerk to everybody. And I understand that some people are hard on other people to get the best out of them, but I don't ever think that's the best course of action. And I don't know, La'an just has not done anything really redeeming yet. So, but that's what I've got. What about you, Jeremy?
I think one of the best sayings of, I just marathoned the first 5 episodes again with Connor for last special. And one of the biggest positives to come out of that was how I feel about La'an. She's definitely, the second time through, has grown on me quite a bit. And I think even in this, yeah, she's kind of a hard ass, but she's also, she suppresses smiles when someone impresses her. When Uhura breaks the case, La'an is the one that tells Uhura, like, you get to bring this to the captain. This was your finding. She's very proud of Uhura. Yeah, she's very damaged, but I think there's some cracks under that veneer that she's doing a great job hiding, and I've liked her a lot more on this rewatch. And yeah, poor kid winning the lottery at 6. You got to be 18 to play the lottery here in Colorado. Oh,
different times, my friend.
Yeah, no kidding. Anson Mount is just wonderful. The range he has in this episode alone is amazing. His goofy demeanor when seeing Allura for the first time is adorable. And then pair that with his powerful reaction to learning the truth in the end. And good God, we just have a wonderful lead on this show. And if Trek is smart, they'll do everything they can to keep Anson in the family as long as possible. Child actors. That's not a pro you say a lot when we talk about Star Trek. The kid that played the first servant is so good. You actually want him to live.
He is so cute.
Yeah. Like, for instance, if he were to fall into a sacred flower bed and was sentenced to death, you'd want him rescued in the end. So kudos to him. I wish he was a host of the Ready Room. I love seeing Mbenga's daughter get to play for a bit, and the kids on the show are just so good. Trek's come a long way since Miri, I think. The other area of Strange New Worlds is crushing it this season are with the special guests. Like you said, Jordan, we don't get a bunch, but when we do, I've really enjoyed them. Robert April has been great in his couple appearances. We also praised Gia Sandhu's performance as T'Pring last week. And we get a couple super strong ones again this week. Hussein Madhaji as the first servant's father and Linda Booth as Delora, I think both played their parts really well. And I think there was a message. Well, no, let me rephrase that. I really like when Trek uses parables to shine a light on our society. I wish they did that here, but I just can't think of what they're trying to say by having a society that places their status quo and well-being over the lives of children. Just because their founding fathers did it.
Yikes.
Like, why would they think rules made up by people centuries ago are still applicable to the present? Clearly, technology has advanced way beyond anything their founders could have known when creating this way of life. But the citizens would rather have a floating house than alive, innocent children. No, nothing as I, an American, can relate to. It must be in their constitution. Maybe their Second Amendment is the right to air farms.
Air farms.
So that's pretty cool.
I
love air farms. Farms in the sky can't be beat.
I love that you put that together.
I don't care how many children I have to kill. I want my farm to fly. So I'm with Pike. This is a disgusting culture, and I'm ready to beam away as well. Right. After the commercial break, we'll jump into our cons.
FarmersOnly.com. FloatingFarmersOnly.com.
FFO. Hey, Star Trek Wars is a podcast that has reviewed every single episode of Star Trek. We covered the original 5 series, that's original series through Enterprise, in our first 7 seasons. Season 8 of our podcast is dedicated to the Trek films, and Season 9, the current season, is dedicated to all things modern Trek. Every episode, past or future, of Discovery, Picard, Prodigy, Lower Decks, and Strange New Worlds will be found in Season 9. You can find every one of those right here on Star Trek Wars feed, plus bonus content. With over 330 episodes of Trek, it's never been a better time to hit it. On top of that, we also have a Patreon channel that covers a wide variety of content, both Trek-related and otherwise. For just a few bucks a month, you'll get access to all that content as well, including roundtables made by and for you guys listening at home. If you want to join the Patreon to support us and get access to all that additional content, plus getting a chance to be on future roundtables yourself, check us out over at patreon.com/Star Trek Wars. Now, let's get into our cons. Cons. Chelsea, do you have any cons?
I do. I have 2 that came up while you guys were talking. So I noticed there were no safety rails on like the weird floating garden.
Yeah, it's very Star Wars of them.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it makes sense if you kill all your kids, you don't have to childproof. But still seems dangerous. What if you get like a drunk adult out there? I don't know. Either way. Also, why is Sam Kirk even on this show? What does he bring?
The surprise reveal in the pilot. That's all
Exactly.
Yeah.
Also, I don't know anything about how he dies, except that it's by a pierogi, according to Jordan. And I'm thinking he gets murdered by a pierogi because he's scared of confrontation.
Yeah. He is pierogi adverse, that's for sure.
But at the same time, I don't know how you argue with a pierogi, so...
And live?
Or get, or get killed by one. But no, that's kind of, I mean, other than like the whole like murdering kids, that's kind of a huge con, but
yeah, sure.
Thought I should mention that. All right, that's it for me.
Absolutely. Thanks, Chelsea. Jordan, what didn't work for you?
I don't have a ton of cons. Is there like a section for things worse than cons?
Oh.
Yeah, they're called la'ans.
Yeah. So the hubris of that bitch to think that Pike would just be cool with child sacrifice. Are you kidding me?
Oh.
It really feels
disgusting.
Like they should have done a better job vetting each other out for potential mates. Because yikes. Yeah.
Well, let me pose this question. Have you ever? It doesn't have to be a date, but have you ever gone somewhere with someone and they're like way into something, and they maybe they just make you watch a movie like this is awesome, and you sit there and you suffer through it. You're like, yeah, this is not going to work out. I don't know if you've ever had a moment like that. I can't really think of one offhand, but I think we can all kind of maybe not completely understand what Pike is going through, but I think we've all had moments in our lives where someone's like super proud of something. It's like, that's messed up. Like, I don't know how, I can't get behind that.
I think I could speak for Chelsea and say, no, she has not had that experience.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, I love Lord of the Rings. It's so good.
But I didn't introduce you to Lord of the Rings on our third date.
No, you didn't. We watched Making a Murderer and Firefly.
That's right.
Because we know how to party.
Yeah. But I was like, Lord of the Rings, that's like a year. That's a third year, not a third date.
Yeah, you baited me.
Yeah.
Until I was too comfortable to leave.
Much like child murder event isn't a third date either.
She should have baited Pike a little bit longer.
Yeah.
I feel like maybe she just shouldn't kill kids is kind of the moral guide.
Okay.
Don't kink shame.
I think we're on the same
And that's
page.
not a kink.
And you did.
I will not kink shame. Child murder is not a kink, though.
No.
That is where I draw the line.
Lastly, I mean,
Rude.
just the script being a little unspecific and quite a bit of convenience, and also the child's father acting like a jerk just to make him seem like the bad guy. Just a lot of that type of stuff. It was okay. I just felt it could have been a little more polished, and it would have played really, really well. But I did want to actually ask a question, because I was thinking about this, and I think one of the best things about this episode and good Star Trek is that it makes you think after you watch it, which is not something I can say for some of the most recent. Like, I didn't watch, episode 8 or 9 of Picard and be like, man, I've got a lot of questions and I need to discuss this with someone. And what's the moral, conundrum here? And so that's the beauty of this. But like, what is the huge difference between what she's doing here, even though it's awful, and getting this kid to sacrifice his life, quote unquote, willingly to sustain their planet for X amount of years, versus Kirk willingly letting Edith Keeler die without her knowledge whatsoever?
Well, I mean,
Other than
history is
Kirk's
written.
the good guy.
Yeah. We know that if Edith Keeler dies, we know the future and that means the Nazis win. And that's writing history the wrong way. And with these guys, yeah, like floating castles are cool, man, but their technology is so great. Can you just like consider moving to a different planet?
I don't think
not
they can.
kill?
Because you see what happened to their ship?
Right, but couldn't they also just build...
They got blown up by a ship that was literally firing rocks
Sure.
or something. Like,
Yeah, but can't they just build like really tall, like foundational structures to hold their shit up? Like, we're humans, we're dumb, and we manage.
There's got to be. I
you
know
would
she
think they could
said
figure it out.
there's not another way, but there
is
gotta
another
be.
way.
It's
You're
just not
lazy,
easy.
and
Yeah.
you get a sick
Yeah.
joy out of this.
You'd rather tie your castle to a kite string than have to deal with realities of,
Putting your house on stilts.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, people do that all the time in places that get hurricanes. I think maybe
Yeah.
if that's a thing. I
It
feel
is.
like it's a thing.
Yeah, but I don't want to be bothered. Let's just have the kids die.
Yeah, but rust is very inconvenient. Living by the coast, gotta replace everything: siding, roofing,
So
stainless steel.
I have a question based on that though, because the Prime Directive is brought up, and Pike's like, "Oh, that's never going to stick." So I mean, how does that? It feels like he's breaking that a lot.
Yeah, all captains do, but there's definitely a non-interference. Like, this is not a Federation world.
They're
You
not
don't-
members.
You don't have jurisdiction. You can't interfere with a non-Federation.
But he was trying. He would have.
I think in his anger, he's like, "I'll report you and I'll do this." And yeah, she had to remind him, like, to what end? You
Right? That's
you
like
have no jurisdiction here.
it's like flipping a kindergarten's card from green to yellow. Like, ooh, you're in it now.
That's exactly what this is.
You talk too much.
Same stakes, exactly.
That feels like it. Sorry, Jordan. Go ahead.
That's all my cons, actually. So I don't know. I just want to pose a question because it's just things I was thinking about. And unfortunately, I did not have a lot of time to think about this episode or watch it twice. Otherwise, I might have gotten a little bit more out of it. Like I said, it was a good episode. It was enjoyable. It had some moral implications for sure. But I didn't have as much time to think about it, but this morning I was kind of giving it some thought. But Jeremy, any cons for you?
I do. I have more cons than I think I've ever had, and I still really enjoy this episode. But yeah, the Hammer void expands, and nothing chaps my hide more than an expanded Hammer void. Sam Kirk, unlike Hammer, unfortunately, he was in this week's episode. He had 10 seconds of screen time, and I didn't love any of them.
Neither did he.
And look, I know Uhura is training, but maybe not let a trainee fire phasers on a hostile ship.
No kidding.
Like that's what simulations
and then her
are
explanation. Yeah, the ship moved as I was firing and it went into the laser beam and then I accidentally shot it where I didn't mean to and then I cut it in half, Captain.
It wasn't me. It was them.
Yeah, which is
Were
great.
they flying tuna cans? Like the lowest setting chops your vessel in half and you're that advanced? What is going on here?
Just medically and kite stringly.
Yeah.
That's where all their resources go into.
Space farming.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a tricky episode for me because look, I don't have a ton of cons because I liked a majority of it and I loved the ending. The moment I saw the kid, though, I was just waiting for the other shoe to drop. So a lot of the episode felt like filler, albeit really strong filler, like a cherry pie. But when that other shoe finally does drop and all is revealed, it's incredibly effective to me. And my last con, do you know what Pike's preferred greeting is? Some of us say hello. Some say, how's it going? Pike says, hi, I'm going to be dead in 10 years. What's your name? Like,
And he still gets it.
he's still, of course.
No commitment.
He still gets it.
That's right. But yeah, he seems to bring this up a lot.
I mean, wouldn't you? This is...
No, I wouldn't have taken the time crystal because I'm weak and a coward.
Like, it feels like they have a past.
Sam Kirk, is that you?
It would make sense to share it with her. I guess.
I'm conflict-averse. I don't deal with this stuff.
What was that word?
Conflict-averse?
The Conflictiverse? Is that a new universe that you created? Where there's no conflict?
Yeah. The
Where there's
CMU?
nothing but conflict?
That's what we thought about this week's episode. Let's hear from you guys.
Picking up communication, sir.
Aaron MD May says, that was a right solid episode. Agreed.
Wayne Fraser says, another really enjoyable episode, but if I'm being totally honest, this was a pretty big step down from the episode that preceded it. A really interesting take on morality at the societal level. Is the life of one person, a child at that, a price worth paying for utopian society? Yes, if that child is an annoying little Never mind. However, the script was a little loose, with a few inconsistencies and red herrings that didn't really add to the story. The revelation that they didn't know why their ancestors designed their world this way and had been looking for an alternative for centuries felt particularly weak. If this is a weak episode, then it's still a lot better than a lot of other Trek episodes, and it bodes well for the long-term outlook of the show.
Barbara Whipple says, well, I did not like this one. It's similar to the TOS episode Spock's Brain in that these people needed someone's brain to run their city computer. But in the case of Spock, he wasn't in pain and they rescued him in the end. So this isn't very Star Trek-y because happy endings are supposed to be a part of it. It wasn't even that well done because everyone was acting very strange the whole time, and we knew something bad was going to happen to that kid, and we were just waiting for the shoe to drop. Pike and the crew come across as pretty stupid not to have been suspicious from the start.
Kevin Leung says, this was a very deep and troubling episode. This episode twists the Vulcan idic, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few or the one. Both sides have a fair argument. In this case, the child even agreed to it, but I think at the last second when seeing the other dead child, changed his mind. At that point, I think it was wrong. I would like to see the crew return to this and see it through. Or is this the end of the story? The Federation can't intervene? Help me out on this one, Chelsea, Jordan, Jeremy. Yeah, I think we mentioned that. They really can't. Pike is out of his jurisdiction no matter how awful this is.
And he got knocked out, so
He'll get up again.
he's a real Sam this week.
Never going to keep him down.
The other aspects of the show went well. I really like how Uhura got to flex her linguist knowledge to help solve the problem, but had issue with the doctor not really holding up his ethics on gaining help for his daughter.
And Chris Rowell says, overall, another solid showing for Strange New Worlds. I like the fact that the Federation didn't win in the end. Too often, someone swoops in with the repolarize the whole plating, or let's try and reverse the magnetic field generator pulse from the deflector dish. But in this case, despite the issues of morality, the kid fulfills his destiny. There's one thing that bugged me. Pike, aka Handsome Mount, and his romantic interest were talking about something, and he revealed in 10 years he was going to meet a grisly demise. She responded with, "How could you know that?" And he in turn responds with, "I just know." And that was the end of the conversation. I call BS. Anyone would have been like, how? Can you time travel? What happens? First encounter with what I would consider poor writing. However, still a great episode. I'm just really nitpicky because ultimately it's hard to find fault with the show and the cast. I love it. 8 Mount Man crushes out of 10.
Keith Danforth says, honestly, I initially felt this was a solid 10 episode because it really was a great story, well placed, and solid performances by all involved. Then I began to sort of nitpick at a few things I wanted to see. I wanted to see Hemmer get involved and study the chair and why only children could be used. I wanted to see Kirk get knocked unconscious again trying to do something. Yeah. I wanted Spock to try and intervene and argue on behalf of the boy rather than Pike.
Keith goes on to say, but then I feel the point of this episode was to be succinct. Sure, you could extend it out another episode and really go full Black Mirror on why a child must die to power a civilization and the cultish religion that moves it. But I think we viewers were supposed to feel the same way Pike did at the end, just standing there, surprised Pikachu face, unable to help, unable to get the Federation involved, unable to do anything. It was an example of the Prime Directive actually being upheld instead of broken like every other Trek captain in series. We are meant to hold on to that feeling, and man, was it suffering.
He says the trade-off of helping Mbenga's daughter was at least a silver lining that does somewhat feel like a violation on the good doctor's part, given the other child's sacrifice. But I think we figured out by now that he is willing to cut some corners to save his daughter's life. 9 lessons of security.
Wonderful. Thank you. And thanks everybody for participating. That ends the portion of the people I like to hear from. Now we're going to hear from the Gatekeeper of Forever. Since before our sun had burned hot in space and before our race was born, he has always awaited a question. Oh, Gatekeeper, answer the question you want me to ask you this week.
I'm sorry, what's the question?
Yes, Gatekeeper, what is the question?
So, this is the best Gertzman could do. Combine the classic episodes Spock's Brain, The Cloud Minders, and When the Bow Breaks, I'd rather watch And the Children Shall Lead. Kirk would have found a way to save that kid. Really, all Pike needed to do is use his hair to stab those guards. If all Star Trek has to say is that you shouldn't use an advanced ancient machine that no one understands to suck the life force out of your offspring one small child at a time to power your society, then this show is poised to give Disco a run for its money as the worst Star Trek show ever. You know what? I've had a change of heart. Just kidding, I don't have a heart. I give this episode a 1. One annoying child at a time.
Bye, Gatekeeper. I thought he was going to review the episode Change of Heart for a second.
Do we take his vote into account?
We tell him we do.
Okay.
But if he ever does the math, which
Yes.
I don't think he can, he'll find out that he is being left out. Speaking of review, let's go ahead and review this episode. Chelsea, what do you give this week's?
Are we doing 0.5s or has that been shut down?
Well, I think Jordan's made it canon.
It's canon.
Thanks, Jordan. I'm going to
You're
give this
going to have decimal points anyways because of the way the voting works, so you might as well.
Yeah, no, you're right. So I can have decimal points.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to give
0.5s.
this an 8.75.
God. Jordan,
I said you could do 0.5, just halves.
You said you can have decimal points.
I said there are decimal points.
it's a
because of
slippery
math.
slope.
Well, I just made decimal points.
I'm sorry, Chelsea, at
0.75?
8.75.
Yeah.
What have I done?
This is on you, Jordan.
This is all on you. Jordan, what do you give it?
I'm going to give it a 7. 7 oath coins.
Oh, very good.
Jim, I see your oath coin is... Wait, how do you have that oath coin, by the way?
Oh,
Didn't she have it?
Yeah, I was okay. Wait, no. So the second watch through, I noticed. So the casing around it was bent. So that was a fake, and that's how she noticed. Because like the bottom right hand like of the sphere was like pushed in. She's
Okay,
like,
I noticed
the casing's messed up.
Okay, so he made a perfect replica of the coin that only 12 people have, but he couldn't make a case. Okay, got it.
Nobody's perfect. I'm going to give this one, speaking of which, 7.5. A 7.5 incredible hairlines. Pike's Peak is a true 14er. I was going to make a sex joke out of it, and then I ended up making it a hair joke instead.
Right.
So,
I mean, it could go either way.
That might be a first.
It's certainly.
Pike could still be a true 14er. We don't know.
Star Trek Wars Council gave it an average score of a 7.76. So we're all right in there. Let me run this through the Computron. Let me sacrifice this child in my calculator real quick to give us an average score. Yes, there will be suffering. Carry the 5. So many decimal points now.
I mean, the morality of using a child's life force, or whatever you want to call it, to power your society, it's easy to hate on it, but living in Texas and knowing the state of our grid and that it's 105 degrees every day, I wouldn't put it past ComEd or CPS if they asked for a child to help power their grid somehow.
Well, if there's a state that's going to do it, it's going to be either Texas or Florida.
We got a solution. And
Hear
only
me out.
some of you are going to like
Child power.
So how did...
China does it.
Yeah. They do.
What a role model.
So how did Stranger Worlds do this week? Well, using the tough combined average scores of ourselves. I almost had to go through 2 kids to get this average score. You guys have voted to go home. This week comes an average score of a 7.75. And that'll do it this week. Star Trek Wars is available on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, and anywhere else fine podcasts are heard. You can find us over on Twitter at the Star Trek Wars. If you want a shirt, hoodie, or mug, head over to redbubble.com or follow the link attached to the episode. Jordan, always a pleasure. Do me a favor and flip that coin over for me, will you, guy?
Yep, here you go.
Oh, okay, you're fine. Well, that was anticlimactic.
I would love to tell you more, Jeremy, but I'm ascending to another plane of consciousness.
Farewell, Jordan. What does the koala know? Chelsea, as always, thanks for doing this with me.
Yeah, thanks
You're welcome.
for having me.
The 3 of us will be back next week for the 6th episode of Stranger Worlds titled The Serene Squall.
What?
The oxymoron.
Is that a reference to Pike's hair?
Until then.
Hit it.
I have a solution for these stupid child murderers. They should just build their utopia underground.
There you go. Make lava houses, dum-dum.
Do the Tesla thing. Just build freaking tunnels everywhere.
Yeah, or
There's
like the groundhog thing with the tunnels everywhere.
Yeah.
I was thinking more humans, but yeah, I guess
Yeah, no, just be
groundhogs
like
too.
a good groundhog.
There's
Channel your inner groundhog.
There's a city in Australia called Coober Pedy that's in the middle of the desert, and half the society lives underground. These tunnels they've dug because they mine for opals. And so when they're done mining, they just make them into houses. It stays the same temperature all the time.
And we're sure that they're humans? Not groundhogs?
I mean, they're Australian, but yes.
Australian groundhogs?
Human marsupial.
Human, yeah. Okay.
Human supial?
Look it up.
Will do.
Maybe they're naked mole rats.
Oh, God.
My great aunt's name was Opal. Do you think that's
Was it?
where she came from?
Maybe they dug her up.
It's where 96%.
Oh my God, she was reincarnated.
Well, to dig her up now, they'd have to go to Buena Vista.
Oh God. Makes you sound a little bit like Alora.
Yeah, it's a dark episode. It should have been on a dark note.
The beauty of Cooper Pedy is that there's almost no energy because you don't run heat or AC. You just need a ventilation shaft.
It's all making sense.
You plug in little groundhogs, and that's what powers it.
Those little wheels. I don't know if groundhogs go for that.
Gopher.
Gopher.
Thanks for listening to Star Trek Wars.